I think before you ask the federal government for something, you better know what you're asking for. You better have some specific ideas and plans. When it comes to pensions, and we need the federal government engaged. By the way, that's why we want to have this this summit of all the interested parties.
Just to go back to EI, I'm just curious. You use in the press release the word equitable and not equal, and I was wondering why this choice of word. Is there a reason, a specific reason? What's the difference between equitable?
Well, there was this discussion today. Equitable support speaks to fairness, I think that all premiers realize that as we hopefully make some fundamental improvements to employment insurance, what will still be the case is the reality of the country, which is how different the economies are. I'm back to that again. How different regions are, and so there is a greater dependence on seasonal employment in parts of the country than in others. So we want it more equitable than it is, but we also want to recognize the fact of the Canadian reality that there are these differences.
So you mean it doesn't, to be equitable, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be equal?
It doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, if you're just talking about numbers, it doesn't have to be equal. It's not right now, as you know, because we have the 58 regions and payments kick in at different hours of qualification. That's what we're saying. Let's make some progress here. Let's narrow this down to make it simple, more simple, I should say, and still represent the reality of the country. We're going to be talking about trade tomorrow, you bet. Premier Williams is in Newfoundland. He called me on Monday, and he was unable to make it. There was issues he was going to be taken care of, and so Deputy Premier Kathy Dunderdale has done a great job, and so I've changed my mind about taking down the Newfoundland flags based on the job she's done.
Did you see the vaccines for H1N1 and how much the federal government and how much of the cost is going to cover?
I beg your pardon?
The vaccines for H1N1 and how much the federal government the cost is going to cover?
You know, we were focused today, and we will be focused in the weeks ahead as we get closer and closer to fall, on just making sure we are ready to serve the citizens, to make sure we're focused on their health as premiers across the country, and I believe that would be true of the national government. We'll worry about all the breakdowns at some other point. We just need to get the vaccines ordered and work together with the federal government and other provinces, have our chief medical officers cooperating, and provide that service to Canadians.
But they're going to cover 60% of the cost. That saves you guys at least 60% of the cost, because usually the provinces and territories pay the shot for health costs. Isn't that good news?
Well, anytime you have a partnership that is working with different levels of government, with the priority being the people that we work for, in this case Canadians who may be concerned about H1N1, certainly that's a good thing. I think there's been other precedents for federal participation in these kind of national health issues. I stand to be corrected, but I think with respect to SARS, there was a large federal partnership there as well. So there's certainly precedent for that. This is not a Saskatchewan issue. Obviously, it's not a Manitoba issue. It's a national one, and obviously there's a role for the federal government's leadership. And again, we're pleased with the partnership so far. We want to encourage it to continue.
Some missing baggage, maybe some clothes you can lend out.
Yes.
How do you feel at the end of today and the progress you've made as host this week?
Well, it's obviously my first time. It's only my second annual meeting of the Council of the Federation, and I hope, first of all, from the perspective of all of those guests that we've invited, is that they're experiencing some Saskatchewan hospitality. I think that's the case so far. And in terms of the meeting, today was a good day. I sometimes wish Canadians could see what's happening in there. This is a pretty dynamic room of leaders who first said about the business of current issues, important issues like H1N1, like the employment insurance program of this country that needs changes. There are 200,000 plus Ontarians and others across the country that would like to see that. And then we started talking about the future, and more than talk about it, we talked about specific ideas so that we can come out on the other side of this recession strong as a country and economically healthy. And so I hope that was rewarding for all of the participants.
What's the overall feeling about this year in Quebec City?
I beg your pardon?
There's a lot more on the plate of issues this year than it was in Quebec City in terms of the seriousness and the immediacy of issues like H1N1.
Well, consider that in Quebec City, we were a couple of months away from what would be, the four horsemen of the apocalypse running up Wall Street, and that has obviously seized governments all over North America. So the economic issues are huge. And, I have been honored to be a part of a group in this Council of the Federation who are engaged, and to the credit of the Prime Minister, by the national government to come up with a plan for the country. Imperfect as it is, but to work together on a stimulus. So it's worked. We've been actually meeting more as a council, unfortunately because of an economic challenge, than we have been. And so we're getting a lot done, but there's a lot of issues that we're here to resolve. Again, we're here on behalf of the people that we represent.
What is the general sense around the table about the state of the economy as to whether the recession is over or whether we're still in it or not? What's the sense?
I don't think anyone's ready for a press conference from the deck of an aircraft carrier, but I do think this, that premiers understand there are positive signs. That whole green shoots analogy, I think, rings true for most premiers, even Premier Williams, with whom we had a great conversation. He is, obviously like things to be even better, but he was happy with how his economy was weathering the situation and hopeful about the future. So I think optimism, but still concerned about what's happening right now. There's also a fiscal challenge, though, as you know, coming out of the recession. Provinces and the federal government are looking at significant fiscal challenges in their budgets, which can't be fixed overnight, as we saw in the 90s. I'll go here and here, then here, Jennifer.
The main concession came from the Western provinces on EI to get this kind of agreement?
Oh, we were all compromising and working together.
Compared to what you were offering at first, like
well,
national...
we were talking about three categories, not geographical categories, but remote, rural, and urban in terms of our plan. Really, that's the only difference. So where there's a bit of a change there from the Western Premier's position is simply the statement that we got to get less than 58, but we didn't. That part is a compromise. The other principles are there from the Western Premiers, and I was grateful for the interventions of premiers on that count as well, who are not Western Premiers.
Sorry, to finish off with James' question, you started talking about the deficits, for example, that provinces are facing still, and the challenges that provinces are facing as trying to come out of this recession. Does that mean you'll be looking to the federal government for more money to provinces to help you continue that plan?
The federal government has its own fiscal situation to deal with, and so I think you will always have provincial governments who will have asks of their federal partner. And I'm sure whoever the federal governments are, whoever the provincial governments are, I don't expect that to change. It's a dynamic of federalism. But if the question is, did we talk about that in there? No, I think there was just there's an acknowledgement that there's going to be, and there's going to have to be, over a period of time, the fact that we need to the provinces, the federal government needs to deal with the deficit, and that's going to present its own set of challenges, but no specific calls or plans to call for any new or additional federal dollars. Right, 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 yeah, right. I think every single province has been doing an inventory to make sure we're not that we don't have a speck in our eye when we're pointing out problems with someone else. And so in the case of the province of Saskatchewan, we need to have open procurement. That's the case with our crown corporations today. And I think it's the case across the country. But that is what we'll talk about tomorrow. We need to be able to give the federal government the opportunity to go to the United States and say, look,